Welcome to the show. I just want to say I watched your reel. It's very funny. I mean, you have a bunch of clips up there. You have drama stuff too, but I love the comedy. I was laughing, and it's always good to laugh. So everybody check out her reel because who can't use a laugh nowadays? We really need to do that. So I wanted to talk to you about your circle life, which is great. About you started out as an actor, you went into a corporate career, and what made you make that decision to do that? And then what made you come back around, and how is that all going?
Thank you. And yes, laughter is key. And I love that you laughed. And that is one of my purposes in life, is to bring people joy. So thanks for that. Yeah, I started out as a theater actor. I always thought I would be an actor from the time I was very young, like many of us. It's just who we are from a very young age. And I did that successfully for a number of years. In theater, mostly regional and touring. And then I came into New York City, and the reality of what it means to be an actor in New York hit. I have a friend who was doing very well, and it took him quite a number of years, and he slept in his car until he made his first big break in television. And I thought, not really loving the idea of sleeping in my car. So I did go into corporate life, and I really enjoyed it. And I did a lot of discerning, and I read a great book called What Color is Your Parachute? Again, from that same period of time. And it talked about, the one line that stayed with me for life was bloom where you're planted. And I have this belief that if you are a creative storyteller, which I am, and that's how I identify myself in the industry, actor, producer, co-creator, but creative storyteller, that you can tell your stories wherever you are, and it can be just as satisfying. And so, it's very dry, but I tell stories with numbers. I look at numbers and I say, well, what's the point? What's interesting about this? What's the story? So that's how I got into the corporate world. And then after many years in the corporate world, I raised a child. And as my child got to a certain age, I began to have a little more freedom. I'd gotten to a certain place in my career where I didn't have to travel as much anymore. And I had the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth, to start thinking about what I wanted to create next. And I began to dip my toe into the New York acting community. And it was incredibly welcoming, and doors just opened, and I just kept saying yes and walking through them.
I don't agree with this, so don't worry. But I went to a panel online from a festival, and they were talking about how if you're over a certain age, that you might as well just not bother. And I don't agree with that. So I'd love to have you talk about jumping back in and how well it's going for you, because I know it's going well.
I think that's more on the person who said it than anything else. It's their belief. And if that's your belief, then it's true. If you believe that you're too old, then you are. But I don't believe that. And I've had a great time, and I feel like I'm hitting my stride. And like a lot of people, I've grown into myself as an actor. I think I've honed my craft more in my older years. I'm more castable than I was in my 20s and 30s. I think for women, especially of a certain age, coming back into the industry, there's always a mother, there's always a grandmother, there's always a role.
And actually, I was talking to another actor who's, over 50. She just got an agent because they actually don't have people in her category. And the reason they don't, I believe, I mean, this is just my summation, is that there are some actors, they stay in it for a long time, and maybe they do build up and then they become big. So they're in a certain group, right?
Yep.
But then a lot of people do drop out if they don't hit it, because for a variety of reasons. And so there is this weird, people either coming back in like you, or people have been in and out or whatever, but there's sort of a gap in that age group that's not famous. So there is this need for that, hey, we still need people who aren't expecting to get paid this, but that are really talented and want to be working. And I do think that there's a gap. I know with indie film, it's hard to find people because, we don't have a lot of money. So,
Right. And I think there's a distinction there too, between indie film and network television and studio films. I think you're right. I think, well, what happens is the pack thins, right? There's a million young women in their 20s and 30s, a million of them, really literally hitting the boards, trying to figure out how to break into this business. by the time you reach over 50, they've either made it, and a lot of them have left. And so I see a lot when auditions were in person, I would see a lot of the same actresses in the waiting room over and over again. We became friends. We already knew each other. The New York acting community is a very generous community. And I do think that it's small comparatively to other markets. And so you get to know people. And I think that's true. I think there are just less of us. So if it's a numbers game and there's odds, I'm playing the odds where there's less of us, right? Then I don't know. I think again, it's a lot of that is in your beliefs. If you believe it, then it's true because you're going to behave in that way. That's your energy.
Right. No,
It's
absolutely. If you believe that it's not going to work out, then you're just not going to be putting your all out there. And there's a little bit of a wall up there, I think, when you do that. And I
yeah.
think, like I know we were talking offline accidentally before, but we were talking about kindness and,
Mm,
just how far that goes in this world of artists. I guess it depends on why people do things. Though I always say if you really want to be rich and famous, go be a business person. Like,
absolutely.
go into PR for yourself. I don't know, but it's not in the art world. Most people are not rich and famous, and
Right.
the success is in doing it
Yeah.
and being happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's gotten much more acceptable and understood that most artists have to have some other kind of income to support them, to make it work.